focus on and feeling this overwhelm of emotions caused me to go down a rabbit hole where I'm only focused on losses. Because during COVID, it would be easy to focus on losses if that's what you chose to focus on. And one of the things that I remind myself of and others, that problems and solutions do not hang out together. Know that when you're focused on the good, it's easier for you to see solutions. It's just the fact that you are focused on something that is good, that is positive, you attract positive ideas.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe.
We are living in some very interesting times, and I was not going to try to sugarcoat it. It's pretty messed up right now. And a lot of people are feeling the effects of that emotionally. Depression is something that we see a lot as coaches or as therapists, even doctors. We see a lot of that. We also see a lot of grief. It hasn't been that long since we dealt with COVID. And after all, this country lost over 1 million people. And we just went right from there into being in everyday life. And we've had a lot of trauma within the last 7 or 8 years, a lot of trauma. So the question is, how much is this trauma impacting us? Or is it impacting us at all? So we're going to have a talk about that. We're going to be talking with Barbara Palmer, who is the CEO and owner of V.I.B.E Coaching Services. And she is certified in many modalities, including being a certified health coach and a transformational coach. She was also a retired college professor and program director. She wrote a book called Healthy, Happy, Whole, a health and well-being workbook. And she loves talking with people about ways to deal with grief, depression, and overall health as we go down that whole process of getting older. And so thank you so much for being here, Barbara. It's wonderful to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be with you.
I am too. It's interesting because there's been quite a lot happening. Quite a lot of what I think most people would agree is trauma. You hear that word thrown around a lot. So let's start with that. The definition of trauma.
The whole thing about trauma is that what is experienced is something that basically anyone would have difficulty responding to. So trauma is like when you hear about certain things that people have experienced, there's a part of you that is like your heart just is almost in your throat, where you feel for that person. Trauma is that kind of thing. It actually evokes a response, not just from the person or persons affected by it, but also someone who is witnessing it or even hears about it. It's a very deep, it's a visceral kind of response to something that has happened, usually beyond a person's control, something unexpected, definitely the last thing that the person may have been desiring in life. It's a major contrast.
That's right. So I guess you would agree then that the whole COVID experience was pretty traumatic for the whole.
For everyone, really, for everyone. COVID had so many layers of trauma involved in it, layers of grief involved in it. So yeah, the fact that we're talking about globally, where nations were affected, where governments were affected. It's like the different types of systems were affected, were to the degree that what worked before, when they would try to do some of the same things, even as far as like for the US with the Center for Disease Control, it's like, honestly, they were feeling their way to some degree. A lot of what has worked in healthcare was utilized, but it ended up needing to be used in settings that never had to be concerned about universal precaution.
Exactly. Exactly. It was earth shattering. And the thing I find so interesting about it is that when the emergency and all the restrictions were over, everyone tried to get back to life like it almost had never happened. And what I wonder about sometimes is how many people out there are going untreated, because it certainly does make sense that after such a trauma that we would be dealing with grief, anxiety, and depression.
Yeah.
So given that, first of all, how do we even know that we might be depressed? You hear that word thrown around a lot, but I'm talking about clinical depression. How does one know that they might be clinically depressed?
The thing about clinical depression is that it requires being diagnosed by a physician or psychiatrist in this case, this is their training, this is their background. However, as far as things to look for, if it's like I said, it's not about just being sad or blue. It's where a person literally loses the ability to feel joy. There's a difference in when you're going through a rough patch because something happened, you're making an adjustment. But with depression, it's where there's a point where it's almost like the person not caring, their ability to care, their ability to care for themselves, their ability to care for others. It's like they're shutting down instead of, I think about their way that the body can shut down in response to sepsis. It's almost like with depression, it's on a mental and emotional level where I wouldn't call it's a, right, stick with that analogy because on a mental and emotional level, it could be like there's something that is making the heart sink.
Yes, yes. And when I think about COVID, I can certainly understand the depression piece, but there's another piece
Yes.
as a result of all the trauma, and that was the grief. I think probably there isn't one person in the United States and in other countries as well that does not know of at least one person who lost their life, or they know a person who knew a person who lost their life.
Yeah.
And that's pretty traumatic. One minute, your neighbor, Mr. Brown, and then the next minute, you've heard that he has died in the hospital with none of his family around or along with COVID. So when it comes to that kind of grief, what are the signs that you're dealing with unprocessed grief, that you just compartmentalize it, but you haven't really dealt with it?
The thing about grief, besides it being something that needs to be processed in order for a person to be on the other side of it, sometimes it's believed that there are stages that people go through. The only thing about the stages for grief is that you can return. It's like they're not the kind of stages that it's like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And now we're in phase 5 where we have acceptance. You can actually, with grief, you can get to acceptance after going through denial and anger and bargaining and all this, and have something happen. Just as an example, you're watching a movie. You didn't expect a certain portrayal in this movie to remind you of this dear one that is no longer with you. You didn't even know it was in the movie. You're sitting at the movie and all of a sudden, now we've got the thing just kind of welling up within you where you're feeling that pain again. You're feeling, or you're even possibly remembering the moment that you realize that you no longer had this person in your life. That's how grief is. Grief is something that has what they call stages.
Yes, stages of grief, yes.
Yeah, but you can revisit, and how you allow yourself to process things by giving yourself permission to feel. Because anytime we try not to feel something, first of all, we were made to feel. You know, God gave us emotion. Emotions are not a mistake. They are indicators of what's going on. Whenever you feel something, one of the things you can do is just ask yourself, what was I thinking about when I started feeling like that? Because our thoughts, what we focus on, is directly connected to how we feel. And also the stories that we tell ourselves about whatever it is can make things better or worse.
Or worse, yes, because I know there's such a thing as denial of grief. I went through an experience when I was in my 30s. My mom was hit by a fire truck on her way to work. She was only 56 years old. She was vibrant. She wasn't sick or anything like that at all.
Yeah.
And that was completely traumatic. But I had just had a baby. She was 6 weeks old. And then I had a 17-month-old and I had a 4-year-old. I was married. My dad, he was a widower then. I had a 17-year-old sister at home and another sister who was just finishing up her graduate studies at UCLA. So I was like the default in terms of trying to hold everyone together. So as a result, I compartmentalized it. And the actual grief didn't really show up until 20 years later in the form of anxiety, which also was exacerbated by hormonally because of my low progesterone. Of course, they didn't lead with that when I went to the doctor. They didn't even talk about hormones at all. They just gave me a pill. But as I began doing this work and being trained to myself, I realized that's what it was. And so sometimes women over 40 deal with a double whammy of processing grief. They have the grief that maybe they didn't process that might have just happened anecdotally during the course of their life. And then they have the other kind of trauma and grief that happens with losing parents and other loved ones and friends and so on and so forth. So all of that to say, how can we begin to process it in a way that keeps us emotionally healthy? What are some of the steps or things that we can do?
For one, I remind women we are so good at serving others to give ourselves the same compassion that we would give to a friend, that we would give to a stranger, experiencing what we have experienced. And really, when I say that, it's like saying it and doing it. It's like really not just giving yourself permission, but being compassionate with yourself in real time. Being compassionate when you're having that memory. Being compassionate with yourself when you are having one of those times where you are just so missing this special person in your life. And allowing yourself to feel that missing. But what also helps is looking for the gold or the good that this person brought to your life. One of the things that can really help, it's an exercise, but it's an easy exercise. You can set a timer. Sometimes I set a timer for 20 minutes. And during that 20 minutes, I write down everything that pops in my head to be thankful for, especially if it's regarding if I was in a grief mode. I can write down everything that I am grateful for, thankful for, appreciate about my mom, about my dad, about some of the people that passed during COVID. The man who married me, and this is me revealing some of my stuff. The man who married me to my first husband.
Okay.
But he was also a cousin that was close to my dad. So thinking of him passing also brought up the fact that my dad had passed. And it's where you look for the good And I just would write one thing after another. The way that my mom cooked and introduced me, to cooking, and the fact that it seems like it is passed on to my daughters and even my son. It's like my son makes the best peach cobbler, and my mom, that was one of the things about her. But looking for ways to just really honor the memories that you had. If you focus on the good, it's easier for you to grief. Go ahead.
Okay.
But I was just thinking in terms of we all have the ability to make decisions. So it would make, but making a decision that regardless of what I'm feeling, I'm going to allow myself to feel it, but I'm also going to allow myself to process it. And that means that I allow myself to see the good, to feel the bad, but to remember the good. I'm not going to let a temporary focus on and feeling this overwhelm of emotions cause me to go down a rabbit hole where I'm only focused on losses. Because during COVID, it would be easy to focus on losses if that's what you chose to focus on. And one of the things that I remind myself of and others, that problems and solutions do not hang out together.
That is so true. You have to actually go out and find the solution. It's not always like they're available for you. That's true.
Yeah. So just know that when you're focused on the good, it's easier for you to see solutions. It's easier for you to have ideas that are good for you and others. It's just the fact that you are focused on something that is good, that is positive, you attract positive ideas. And they can be ideas where you just have the idea that, boy, it's been a long time since I made that cake. Just because you started focusing on the good.
Things, then you find yourself falling into something else that might bring you joy.
Yes, absolutely.
We will be back with Barbara Palmer after this message from our sponsor. As a woman over 40, our bodies naturally produce less collagen every year. That can affect our skin, hair, joints, and even our gut health. And that's why I choose Great Lakes Wellness Collagen. It's made with clean, grass-fed collagen peptides, is iGen non-GMO tested, and contains no unnecessary preservatives. Plus, it dissolves quickly into my morning coffee, my smoothie, or even water. No clumps, no strange taste, just an easy addition to my wellness routine. I've personally noticed healthier looking skin, stronger hair, improved digestion, and my joints don't feel nearly as stiff when I wake up. If you're ready to support healthy aging from the inside out, click on the link on my show page and discover why Great Lakes Wellness has become a part of my daily routine.
With your thoughts. It's interesting because, in particular, since this is a program for women in midlife, I really feel that stage of life has a lot to do. You do a lot of reframing.
Yeah.
A lot of thinking things in a different way. So what are some of the basic things that one can do to improve their thinking in terms of how they view things?
Great question. One of the ways that you can reframe things is to ask yourself, is that true? Because some of the things that we hear or even may repeat, it's like, really? Is that true? Some of the things that folks get upset about, and I'm thinking about a woman that I was in the presence of, even this morning. And no judgment, it's just noticing. I tend to become more mindful is one of the things that can help, is start noticing what you focus on. Start noticing what you say. Start noticing what you say about yourself. Start noticing what you say about others, because ultimately we love others as we love ourselves, whether we realize it or not. So the way we talk to or about other people, that's a reflection of how we are treating ourselves and how we feel about ourselves.
So when we're going through that process of reframing how we think, we're really trying to rise above the fray.
Yes, absolutely.
How more aligned with what is good. What does that mean? What does it feel like to be aligned with,
oh my God,
of living? What are the results of that?
The results are an increase in peace, an increase in just a joy, even I would say a type of bliss. There are times that you are just enjoying the fact that it's a beautiful day. It's like you find joy in simple things. I do the 20-minute thankful exercise also as a way to just lift myself up. So while I'm doing that, I start noticing, oh my God, it's a beautiful day. If it's raining, I decide that I came up with this one day. It was raining, storming. I said, I love rain. The rain is watering the earth somewhere, helping these plants to grow, which helps to clean the air. Grateful for all the plants in this relationship that God created, where the reason why we have air to breathe is because of all these plants. And we didn't have to necessarily plant any plants, but this air is being sustained by these wonderful plants. And
these are things that a lot of people take for granted or don't even think about. But when you are searching and stretching to find a way to move out of your grief, to move out of feeling down or depressed, these kinds of tools can really work. Now, I know that there have been some people who just swear by affirmations, that if they say the affirmation, that begin to change the trajectory in your thoughts. What are your thoughts about affirmations?
My thoughts on affirmation are to understand that affirmations are a slow way, and I emphasize the word slow, a slow way towards making an internal change long term. Because ultimately you want a long-term effect. And I know that there are other methods that are more effective. So I will start with that, because ultimately, in order for change to last, it needs to be on an automatic level, which means the subconscious is involved. And whatever is in your subconscious that would resist what the affirmation is that may be said or repeated, your subconscious, that part of you, because it is a part of you, that your subconscious needs to be convinced of what you're saying. Otherwise, what can happen with affirmations is that you cause a resistance within you to rise up every time you say what the deepest part of you is not on board with.
Wow, it's like you have to be aligned, so to speak, with the information itself. So that when we talk about processing grief and moving through it and moving through our depressions, you mentioned that there are some other practices that might work more quickly in terms of feeling better. But what are those?
One of the methods that I use, it's a neuroscience-based method, but it has an acronym MAP, Make Anything Possible, is what it stands for. It's where I help people to understand that we all have a part of ourselves that we haven't been taught much how to relate to. And I help people learn about their superconscious which some believe is just another way that the subconscious presents itself. But just know that this part of us responds to being called superconscious. So imagine that you have this superconscious / subconscious that has been with you since conception, that is not only a witness to what you've experienced, but is also a helper that you never were told was there to help you. It's there to help you achieve your goals. It's there. That's one of the things about with the subconscious. Once it understands what it is that you are wanting, it helps you. But otherwise, some of the stuff that has been stored that needs to be reprogrammed. The way that when you focus on new things, better things, what serves you now, stop focusing on what no longer serves you, what no longer even represents what you're about. The more you focus on the good, the new, your subconscious helps you to build, helps you to find ways, helps you with ideas. It's like you have a goal, but you have no idea how it's gonna happen. But this is a part of you that is there to help you with the ideas, to help you as far as connections. So when I mention the superconscious, I teach people how to tap into that aspect of their being. And I am trained that's what I use as far as when I'm doing coaching. Because sometimes when people whatever it is that concerns you, it concerns that part of you too. So imagine that you have an issue, an idea. Maybe it's you recognize that there's a project that you're working on and you don't even know where to start. You can actually speak to your superconscious.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. In our subconscious is so much information and so many life experiences and so many feelings. Some of them relevant, some of them not. So as we begin to get ourselves aligned, what's going to be on the other side of that? What's going to happen as a result of going through that process?
I am so glad you asked that, because what's on the other side of, what's on the other side of change, that the ego is not you. The ego is not me. I have an ego. You have an ego. We all got an ego. It's just like we got armpits. We all have this ego, but the ego it's like the part of us represented by all the stuff that we were taught as we were being a child growing up. That it's the part of you that feels afraid of anything new. And also the ego is that part of you that is, because it's afraid, when you start feeling uncomfortable with something new, being in a new situation, it's like wanting to stay the same or feeling pressure to stay the same. Oh, it's like almost talking yourself out of something really great, saying what you have is okay. But if okay is not what we were created for, if we were created for a great joy, we were created to be creators of tremendous ideas and solutions and fun and imagination and places like Disney World. It's where that creative side, the ego is not where that creative side comes alive. The ego resists the creative side of any person. It's always going to push back. And how are you going to do that? And how are you going to do that? And what is this person going to say? And what is that person going to say? And it's like, okay, every good idea does not have to be voted on, because ultimately, if it's a good idea to you, that means that God has a way for it to happen.
That's right. But what they were saying, if he brings you to it, he'll bring you through it.
Absolutely.
And times we can become our own worst enemies because we begin to talk ourselves out of the very thing that is so helpful. Now, I know that you have a book and a workbook that's getting ready to be a course. Tell us about your book, first of all.
The book is Healthy, Happy, Whole. This is, I don't know how it looks like. It's kind of got a glare to it. But Healthy, Happy, Whole, it is a workbook, and it's designed to become a reference for the person. It's something that they can go back to. So it's not like you just read it and then you're done. You can read it, and then depending on what's going on in your life, you can go back and take a look at it.
Use some of the concepts and some of the things that you talk about.
Yes. Because, for instance, it allows you to do a self-assessment, more than one. There's one self-assessment where you take a look at what you've experienced in the past 12 months. And you're doing this as a way of being more aware of the fact that depending on what your score is, because I don't know what your score is going to be. You don't even know until you do it. It's letting you know what to be aware of so that you are taking better care of yourself. Sometimes because of what you've already been through, if you're not taking really good care of yourself, you're susceptible to getting sick. You're susceptible to having an accident, and you may not know that. This allows you an increase in awareness so that you can make adjustments. It's not about fear, because it's about being empowered and to start noticing and making decisions. Another self-assessment is there to help you look at your support system, because regardless of what you've been through, it helps when you have a support system that is really supportive. If you think you have a support system, but when you're going through what you're going through it by yourself, you need a new support system. It may be time to cultivate some new relationships, or start noticing the people that really are there for you that maybe you haven't appreciated. And it's like you start to see what you didn't see before.
It's always interesting to see who shows up when you're going that grief experience or that depression experience. I love the story that when my mother had passed, later on that night, everybody was at the house. It was a big wake for 5-6 days.
Yeah.
Really right up until her services. And there was huge crowds of people. My dad was an elected official, so he was well known. So there's all kinds of people coming through. But one, I'll never forget, there was one person in particular, a childhood friend that I had known ever since I was like maybe in 3rd grade. She showed up every single day to do whatever she could do to help. And I would never have expected it. It was interesting. That was the one I remember the most. Everybody else is a blur, but I remember her because she was just there. One time I saw her, she was mopping the floor. Another time she was folding some clothes. But she was just there. And I was so surprised because I had seen her, but I never thought that she would be the one that shows up. And I think that when we're going through that full grief cycle, or when we're going through a mental health issue, we have to learn to reach out to let people know that we need help. There's no weakness in that. In fact, there's strength in the vulnerability.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, I see that you are offering a strategy session, that you have a 30-minute discovery strategy session.
Yes.
To learn how to map, and we talked about that just a little bit, make anything possible, the Make Anything Possible method. That is wonderful. And for those of you who are interested, take a look at the show notes. You'll see her calendar link there, so you can sign up for a map session. And also go ahead and check out her book. The Amazon link to her book is there, as well as all of her social media. Barbara, thank you so much for coming and talking with us about a topic that we don't talk enough about, that we should. It's been really enlightening and wonderful having you here today.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. It's so wonderful. You know, I like to bring topics to you that are going to help you vibe, help you to be more vibrant, more intuitive, more beautiful, and empowered as we all go through this journey of life together. Have a fantastic day, everybody. And don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Vibe Living Podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.